Hi everyone, my name is Maria Hocking and my husband Paul has PXE. He was diagnosed about 3 years ago when a nurse just by chance happened to notice the bumpy skin on the back of his neck. We found ourselves in front of a genetic specialist a few weeks later and he was diagnosed with PXE officially, and we were told to continue with our lives as normal and not to worry too much, but we were also told that it was Paul's eyes that we had to be concerned about. We went back to life as normal, feeling a little uneasy, but kind of put it to the back of our minds. Little did we expect what was about to happen, because a few weeks later he returned home from work and his face was grey. He called me into the kitchen and he said, "I've started to lose the sight in one of my eyes." Now, all we knew at the time was that he had to be seen by a hospital as soon as possible. So we went straight to the hospital and they examined his eyes. And they said, we can't actually find a bleed in his eye as yet, so we can't give him treatment. We went back home and over the next few days his sight got worse and worse and worse. And we kept going back to the hospital and they kept giving him all the tests and they still couldn't find a bleed. And we were devastated. His sight was like disappearing by the day. There was one particular day that I remember which was really, really tough, and it still makes me feel really emotional thinking about it. And we were standing on the side of a football pitch watching our youngest son play. And my husband turned around to me and he said, "I can't see which one is our son anymore." That very same day, I found him standing in the garden on the decking, looking up at the night sky with tears pouring down his face because the stars were beginning to disappear. Now, watching someone you love lose their sight is pretty horrific at the time. I didn't know where to turn to support him. I didn't know what to do. And my only help came from an amazing lady in America who was speaking to me on Facebook, who I managed to find through one of the PXE support groups. And I just remember literally sitting on my dining room floor sobbing one day, talking to this lovely lady from America who was offering me support. And you know, she was the only thing that kept me going that day. A few days later we went back to the hospital again and at last they found a bleed, and we were so relieved because we thought at last he can start having treatment. Little did we expect to hear the words, "Yes, there is treatment available, but because PXE is so rare, currently funding is not available for his condition. We have to apply for funding. He may get it, he may not. We can't guarantee it." So yet again we left the hospital with my husband's sight getting worse and worse and worse. In desperation, we didn't know what else to do. We just felt so lost, so forgotten. We decided to jump on a plane and head to Thailand to visit our daughter who was working as a volunteer teacher up in the hill tribes in the north. We actually had an amazing holiday and travelled from one end of Thailand to the other with backpacks, and it truly was incredible. And we even laughed when my husband said that when he closed one of his eyes, he couldn't see our children's faces anymore because laughter was the only medicine we had at that point. We returned back to the UK and fortunately funding had been secured for his injections. And to this date, he's had about 22 injections, and that's in both eyes because both eyes are now deteriorating. In the last 3 months, he's had to stop driving at night because he can't do that anymore, but he can still drive in the daytime and he can still work. Now, while this might sound like a sob story, the truth is that I'm making this video because it's far from that. Because amongst the devastation of PXE and amongst all the trauma that we've been through and the hopelessness and the feeling lost and the feeling emotionally stripped back to nothing, we have found many gifts. Because what PXE has brought us is knowledge. And it's that knowledge that we should be living for today. And even if you haven't got PXE, this is how we should be living anyway. Living for fun, living for smiles, laughter and adventure. And we can't change the fact that my husband has PXE. And we can't change the fact that the future might hold even more tricky situations for us and even more dark days. But what we can change is our attitude towards PXE. So what we've decided to do as a result is live more for today and have a lot more fun. We go to the cinema a lot more now, just in case he can't see in a few years' time. We go on holiday more. We make sure that we travel more. We do more fun things. We go out with our friends more. And work has become less important and fun and people around us have become more important. So I'd like to say to you that, you know, PXE is very, very challenging, and it affects the whole family. It's not just the sufferer. It's affected me, it's affected my children. But it doesn't have to affect you in a negative way all of the time. Because if you can turn PXE around, and if you can turn your thinking around, thinking, how can I make the best of this situation, then your lives can become far more incredible. The craziest thing is that as my husband was diagnosed and we started to go through all of this, I was actually writing this self-help book called Strip Naked and Redress with Happiness. And it's a self-help book all about getting emotionally naked as a result of adversity. So it's all about finding yourself hopelessly lost in any personal challenge. Now, as he was diagnosed as I was writing this book, and we were going through this challenge as I was writing it, I had no choice but to include it within the pages of this book. So within the pages of this book are my own personal stories through personal challenge, and the last couple of chapters is where my husband's story of PXE comes in. But not only are there stories of adversity, there are amazing self-help tips in here that can help you change your mindset and find those gifts in any situation. And I guarantee you everything within these pages works, and I know because I myself am walking, talking proof, and so is my husband. So if you have PXE, or if you are a family member, you know, of someone with PXE, then this book could be really valuable to you. I'll put a link to it in the description below, and I really suggest that you just take a peek, because when my husband was diagnosed, I began to realise that there was so little support out there. If you haven't joined the PXE groups on Facebook, I highly recommend that you do so, because there is some incredible support on there. So if you're having a really bad day and just want a little bit of someone to understand, go on there and people will support you, and you'll find many, many words of positivity and encouragement. So 2 amazing resources, the Facebook pages and this book, which will help you. And what I will say is that if you want any help whatsoever with PXE, please feel free to contact me via my website, www.mariahocking.com. Because my job is I'm a coach and a motivational speaker, and my job is to help people find happiness. So if you're struggling with PXE and struggling to find happiness as a result, please don't be afraid to get in contact. Even if you just want a bit of free advice, I'd be really delighted to help. So have an awesome day, and I look forward to hearing from you.